Welcome to the first episode of Series 88, everyone. This month we have returning guest Craig Campbell to learn about the game he is designing called Cosmic Corsairs, a space fantasy game about using the power of the cosmos to fight the oppressive Triarchy. In today's episode, we learn what this game is all about before diving into the history of its development. But before we get to that, we do have some calls to action coming up after the show. Here's what to expect. Join us here after the show to learn about our panel at the GameHole Con coming up on Friday, October 17th, which is next week already somehow, as well as information about our next planned streaming date being postponed a tad, our Patreon, how to leave a review for the show, and our patron thank yous as usual. With all of that out of the way, enjoy the show, everyone. Welcome to Character Creation Cast, a show where we discuss and create characters, the best part of role-playing games, with guests using their favorite systems. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan, and this episode, my co-host Amelia and I are excited to welcome back to the show Craig Campbell from Nerdburger Games to learn about their new sci-fi space fantasy TTRPG called Cosmic Corsairs, a game where you play as a being imbued with power by the universe itself.
Welcome back to Character Creation Cast. The last time we had you on for a spotlight episode for Capers, which actually I don't think that I was part of.
That was in the before times,
when I was not
when
doing
we
well.
were recording those together. Yeah.
So I'm glad that you could join us because I actually get to meet you and talk to you this time, which is pretty cool. So welcome back to you, new for me.
Yeah, thank you. I've known of you. I've known your name. I've seen you in the social media spaces and things, and know some of the stuff you've been involved with for a while. But it's good to get here with you virtually and to record our blossoming friendship, which will certainly come out of this forever in perpetuity on the internet, because once it's on the internet, it's never not on the internet.
It's forever. Yep. It's high stakes. So. So can you tell our audience and also me who you are, along with your pronouns, what sorts of things you do, where people can find you online? Please give us your brand pitch for yourself.
I'm Craig Campbell. I'm the owner of Nerdburger Games. I use he, him pronouns. And I've been playing role-playing games since 1991, and then that quickly kind of rolled into GMing, and then designing my own stuff, kind of like for myself and for my friends. And eventually, I got into freelancing, and it's been 35 or whatever years of just kind of slowly rolling up to this point. Starting Nerdburger Games actually about 9 years ago. Next year will be the 10-year anniversary of the company. Yeah, really no kidding, right?
It doesn't sound
10
right.
years, Murders and Acquisitions, the first game that I published, not the first game I designed, mind you. The first game was published in 2016, so 2026 will be 10 years. It's very bizarre.
Did you notice that was happening as it was happening? Like going from playing to GMing to designing to because you said it happened over so long, like slow creep. Did you notice that it was? Or did you just wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, what's happened?
I noticed, I got into it very quickly. I got into RPGs very quickly and playing. And so I was new. And so I really just, I was just focused on, I just want to play. But I was playing with a group of friends in college, and we got to know each other very, very well. And I became very close with them. So they trusted me, and I trusted myself to try my hand at GMing pretty quickly. And then once I kind of became comfortable with certain game systems that I got to know very well, then it was like, well, now outside of just creating an NPC or something, it was like, I can try an idea for a subsystem of rules or a house rule kind of thing. And I was not conscious of it at all. It was just part of what I considered like, well, that's just part of like, playing these games, is that you're going to do all this different stuff. And there came a point where I got a chance to write a module for Living Greyhawk in the first year of the Living Greyhawk campaign for 3rd edition D&D in 1999, but largely because I knew the people who were running the Living Greyhawk region in Wisconsin. And they needed a lot of modules written. That first year they had like more than the normal number. They had a big kickoff and they needed people to write. And so then I was like, oh, that sounds like fun. And so I did that, and I didn't really think about it. And I didn't really do anything with doing, anything professionally for several years. And then I kind of got a chance to try something else. And then I didn't do something for a few years. And so it was a very slow kind of burn. And there came a point where that freelancing thing really kind of took off. And that was kind of the point where I realized, oh, this has been like a whole progression of like all these steps that got me to this. And I wasn't so much thinking about where it would go future wise outside of just like, I want to continue creating
I'm having fun doing this. I'd like to keep going.
Great. I'm enjoying this. I'm getting a chance to freelance for the game that I love so much. And I got to dip my toes in a few other games with freelancing, and that was, and it, it paid me a couple dollars, and I was like, this is great. And then the publishing thing came out of like doing my own games came out of when 4th edition D&D was ramping down and they were starting to play test 5th edition in-house. We didn't know this at the time, but that's what happened. Like a lot of freelance gig opportunities kind of dried up. They were shifting. If you remember D&D at all during that period, they shifted a lot of their product releases to very story-centric, fluff-centric, setting and lore kind of releases, and not so much rule stuff, because they weren't building more rules and rule-based stuff, because they were working on the next edition. And as everything kind of dried up, I thought, well, I can, dig around and try to find other companies, other games that I like, or I can try to design my own game because I'm a sucker and like, why not? Let's give it a shot. And that turned into Murders and Acquisitions, which took a few years to design. And eventually, and that was kind of where Kickstarter had been around for a few years. So I was able to actually make it and put it in a form that I could put in people's hands with artwork and kind of relatively professional production value and all that sort of thing. Which I would not have been able to do several years earlier because I just didn't have money lying around waiting to dump into a venture that may or may not return that money to me.
For sure.
So yeah, it was, that was the kind of the point where it's like, now I became very conscious of what I was doing. And so early in the publishing, after the first game, and then I was working on, a few of the future games, and I was like, my freelancing, like, well, I have to ramp it. If I'm going to focus and I'm going to do this design and publishing thing for myself, the freelancing thing has to kind of slow down, potentially even stop outright, because I'm just not I don't have the time. I'm doing this as a side gig.
There's only so many hours in a day.
And it's a side gig. I work as an architect by the day job.
Cool.
So, that was the point where, and ever since then, there's been always kind of a balance of trying to figure out, like, how much am I going to do? What am I going to do? What can I do? How many different ways can I split my time? Especially when you're self-publishing, you're filling a lot of roles yourself. You're your own marketing, you're your own social media and community manager, you're designing, you're coordinating and, dealing with contracts and getting consultants and freelancers involved. And there's so much going on. It becomes a constant struggle of like, well, what things do I need to do?
Taping up all the boxes that you're shipping out. And
what things do I absolutely have to do in order to make all this happen? And then what are the other things that I can do in a certain balance? And so, for a good 10 years or so now, it's been a very conscious thing of how I move forward with all of this.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's exciting. Well, let's go ahead and get into the game we're here to talk about and start by discussing what this game is all about.
What's in a game?
Yeah. So, Craig, what is the core concept of Cosmic Corsairs?
The core cosmic of Cosmic Corsairs. That's 4 K sounds in a row. That's very funny. At its heart, it is a game about people living in the fringe, people living on the outside, kind of out in the edges of space in this solar system called Aether Space, and fighting back and pushing back against the Triarchy, which is this dark regime, this kind of authoritarian, corrupt regime that dominates and controls much of Aether Space. And
so tell me about that, because that's not a concept that I really understand or familiar with in my daily life. I don't understand.
Well, in the real world, throughout the ages, there have been many corrupt regimes such as that, and yeah. So
Okay,
if you're reading through this game book and you're saying, that sounds like something I've heard of before, it's probably inspired by things that have happened at some point.
Sounds like a really out there wild concept, and I'm
Earth
just not sure it's believable.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild thing to think that there are a bunch of people that have wealth and power and military might and access to certain structures that would try to take advantage of pretty much everybody else. That doesn't happen in the world.
No,
we're lucky enough to not live in that sort of a world.
That's why it's a fantasy role play.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. So I imagine part of the fantasy, though, is feeling like you can do something about that.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, like, where does that come in?
Well, and that was what happened was I started thinking about a game line, because the Capers game line, which has served me well for many years, was coming to a close. I had kind of put a button on all of that. And Capers turned into a game line kind of by accident. I just had people during the Kickstarter of the original core game were asking for, like, are you planning to support this? Will there be supplements and so forth? And so I went down that road. And so for this, I thought I'm going to try to see if I can figure out an approach to take for actually developing a game line. So the idea is to build a number of games that are set in this solar system with this backdrop of the Triarchy, and see how many different ways you can tell stories within that kind of structure of, like, here's the solar system. It's a limited space. It's not, like a whole universe or a galaxy or anything. So you can get very pointed with certain things. And Cosmic Corsairs was selected from among the ideas as the first one because it's space pirates, it's cool. It's space pirates.
Yeah.
And Aether Space is filled with an atmosphere. There's, so the starships look like they look more like sailing ships, although very stylized and very science fiction-y. So they have, exposed decks, top decks, and you could with gravity, technology, you could actually have other decks, on the side of the ship and all that sort of thing. So it becomes like, sailing ships in space, although nothing in the game really looks too much like a galleon, for example. It's all a little more science fiction-y. But that gives you swashbuckly, piratey, jumping from one ship deck to the next ship deck, having starship battles where you're firing cannons from ship to ship, but also boarding the other ship and getting into, one-on-one personal combat. Sure. And then also building out like the strategy of like what are you after? What are you trying to do? Are you taking on the Triarchy head on and just trying to cause as much destruction as possible? Are you trying to undermine their goals at certain space stations and moon bases and things like that? Mm-hmm. Are you building up the resources of the resistance and kind of helping to build that to grow? And in conjunction with that, you can be supporting communities that are refugee communities or fringe communities that are on the outs with the Triarchy, and there are mechanics in the game for actually building trust and hope amongst contacts and communities, and building the resistance in the process. If you build enough hope with a community, they join the resistance. And so you can approach it in a lot of different ways. You can mix and match. You can do it all. You can kind of focus all in one direction, but all kind of themed over with the idea of essentially space pirates. And in the case of this, space pirates who, because they are spending so much time in aether space, their bodies become attuned to the cosmic energies that flow through and between all of the different celestial objects. And aether space, one of the things it does is it promotes this and connects things to each other. So all these celestial bodies are intertwined with one another. And that gives you the opportunity to be a cosmic in the game, which a cosmic is someone who can channel these energies from various celestial objects or from the aether between planets itself. So that's really that's the superpower version of in the game. Other games will have other things that you can do, and that'll flesh out the world, and you'll start to be able to mix and match things from different games, and you can have psychic characters and mutant characters or robot characters or whatever. But for the first game, it's cosmics and the channelings that they can draw upon.
So I'm curious about the setting, because it does seem like it has, a lot of like the kind of harder sci-fi elements with like sort of, space travel, not space travel, but like it does seem to have a little bit of like a fantasy element with like the aether and like all of that kind of stuff. So I'm curious what the balance of that is, and like, what you see people doing with that.
I would say that, calling it a science fiction space fantasy game is not off the mark at all.
Sure.
Because there's no, like, if cosmic abilities had some sort of grounding in science or even just theoretical science, it would make sense. You could say then it's like hard sci-fi, but with just like we're drawing upon this theory, this theoretical science, where this is very clearly like, you're drawing special power from something like in another game that might be drawing mana from a mana source, to produce spells. There's definitely a fantasy element to it. The science fiction elements are plenty and robust. They're all over the place, but they're also, it's not hard sci-fi in that we're looking at really detailed science fiction, or even like
you don't have to be able to justify why gravity works here. It just does because you said it does.
There's technology that allows you to have a plane of gravity. There's the starships work the way they work. Like they can come down to the planet and they don't need giant booster rockets in order to get back off the planet. The cosmic winds help to propel the ships by enhancing the engines. And how does that work scientifically? Well, it's a throwaway line in the Starship section that kind of describes how that happens.
It works because you said it works.
It works because right. So
you don't know aether space physics.
Like just among us can. Really?
Exactly.
And I give a little bit of that kind of there's some techno babble that's in there. I talk about the Atmo bubble that you create on the starship, which is like it's a bubble of atmosphere that moves with the starship. So you live inside this bubble, even though there's an atmosphere outside of it. So that just means that you're not going to get blown off the ship when your ship starts traveling. It's traveling with this bubble of atmosphere that's kind of, attached to it. So there's like little technobabble things that are kind of worked in there so that you can talk about it in game terms, like in character. But if you want to go dig deep into science about all of this stuff, more power to you.
If you want that to be in your game, you can bring it.
The game gives you what it gives you, and you are welcome to theorize up and down. Like that'd be a fun discussion topic to have in some Discord community somewhere. How does this all really work?
So, what sort of tools then do we need to play this game?
Oh well, you need the book, character sheet, and you need 6d10. You shouldn't have to ever roll more than 6 10-sided dice. It uses a dice pool system. But the mechanics are limited in such a way that you won't get beyond 6 dice necessary.
Right.
I just had a moment of panic as we're talking about this. I'm like, do I have, like, I'm going to have to dig out in my jar and find D10. And then I remembered that I played 4th edition L5R for years and years and years. I have plenty of D10s.
Like, why do you have plenty?
Like, I have so many D10s. I just had this moment. I was like, I don't know if I, like, whoa, look at all the different sets. And then I was like, no, I'm just kidding. I remembered.
Well, now you're worried about whether or not you have 6 that match.
Oh, yeah. No, I do, because I got weird shaped ones that I used to play with.
There you go.
Little, like, let's see if I can dig one out. I have these little guys. They're my favorite. That are.
Oh, yeah, the little crystalline
My
details.
friend used to call them sorcery prisms.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love
those.
them.
For this game, it could
They're
be like a
all way
data
at the
crystal.
bottom, because I don't,
They're skinny, and then they just like shoot down in the cracks.
And I just haven't played a lot of 4th edition L5R.
Yeah, it's like when you've got the jar that's filled with like 3 different sizes of pebbles plus sand.
Right. Yeah.
those are skinny, and they'll just kind of fall beneath all the other dice.
Absolutely.
I love a good D10. I love rolling handfuls of dice. So.
Mm-hmm.
Dice pools are fun.
I love a good dice pool.
Yeah.
We don't. It's a thing that I really like. PBTA is great, but like, I don't know. I can't go wrong with a good dice pool.
Yep.
The sound of many dice hitting the table is always fun.
Yeah. So, we touched on it a little bit, but what kind of stories and themes do you want people to explore with this game? And I'm also curious too, and maybe we should save this for the second part, about like this sort of like, other possible games in this setting too. Probably should wait and come back to that later. But I guess the main question then is like, what kind of stories are you hoping people to explore? What kind of, like, what are the mechanics set up to help you do in this game?
Well, the mechanics are, I don't want to say the mechanics are built for combat, but the combat is accounted for and is something that's going to happen, I would expect, in the game. Now, that said, there's nothing about the game mechanics that tie like experience or character progression or anything into combat. You could absolutely play a completely combat-free game and rely all on doing heist style stuff where it's more about skill stuff and pulling off tricky maneuvers and manipulating people socially and conning your way in or out of something. But I imagine the game is going to hit on, unsurprisingly, the nature and the evils of authoritarianism.
Sure.
The idea of, do the ends justify the means, because you might find yourself in the game put into the position of having to do something that's potentially detrimental to some others, but for the greater good, that will ultimately play out to help more. And so I would expect, if people want to explore those routes, those themes, they can. Fighting for what's right, resisting these types of power structures. If you're, depending on how you're playing the game, it could be very much about celebrating those rare victories, where it could be like the fight could be very much a struggle, and you're not necessarily getting a big victory. Like enjoying the little victories and then celebrating the really big victory that comes rarely, because you are fighting back against something that is solar system spanning, that has a lot of brute force, a lot of minds, a lot of power behind it, a lot of strength, strength in numbers, strength of people that have access to things that you can't necessarily get access to. And then you can kind of get into all of some of the tropey stuff that kind of falls in line with these types of stories, with unlikely heroes and flawed heroes and, building revolutions. But you can, at the same time kind of get into the nature of power and control and oppression. And, you could have game whole campaigns, or even just individual stories within it, where you really dig down into like what is happening to these people who are put in, who are being oppressed, who are under the boot of this monumental, seemingly unstoppable power structure, and what it means to live in that. Not that this is necessarily something that everybody wants to necessarily experience in their role-playing game, where they may just be looking to escape a bit, in which case maybe it's just better if you're just blowing Triarchy stuff up and having big victories. But the opportunities are there, and that is kind of left to the individual group to figure out their social contract, and to work to develop during their own session zero, or to develop and modify during play to decide where they want to go with all of that sort of thing. But thematically, it can be quite a lot of different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But all set against that very particular backdrop.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So as characters in this game, what sorts of things are you capable of, and what sort of things do you do generally?
What are you getting up to?
Yeah. I'm curious about the cosmic powers as well, right?
Yeah. Well, you could be looking to build and help communities. You could be looking to grow networks of contacts to help the rest of the resistance, and help yourselves in the process as well. You could be looking to inspire mutiny amongst the Triarchy soldiers that are perhaps having their eyes opened and becoming disillusioned with what their government and their military is doing. And there's also, you could get very subtle with the kind of quiet, passive resistance that takes place, or the like if the Triarchy rule is, if there's a rule that says XYZ, like, well, you can do stuff that still kind of causes problems for the Triarchy within that confined set of circumstances.
We call that malicious compliance.
Exactly. That was the phrase I was looking for. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do what you say, but I'm going to do it in such a way that I'm twisting this around.
You say that you want that, but I'm not sure.
Do you really? Because I've got this certain way of doing it that's going to be kind of a kick in the,
Yeah.
And then all the way up, you can get into, much more direct, like, not to steal something from Andor, but, stealing payroll, to weaken the hold and the loyalty of soldiers and other officials in outer regions. You can be, just doing what you can to disable or destroy starships, to prevent troops from moving to different places, and making it harder for the Triarchy to impose their will by not having the appropriate personnel on the ground.
I'm really curious about the community part of it too.
Yeah, that was something that I came out of development with Chris Boyer, who's been helping me as a story developer in the game. Because I was very focused on trying to getting the mechanics into shape and figuring out, especially because the combat mechanics needed the most playtesting, because they're the most robust of the mechanics, which is often the case with games that have combat in them. And it ultimately developed into the idea of the GM has, and we'll get into, I'll preface it with, for your character, you have 3 tracks that you keep track of things on. And we'll talk about what that means for your characters when we get to the character creation. But kind of in that same mode, the GM has 3 different types of tracks that they will keep track. And a track is just a series of check boxes that you'll mark off 1 or more check boxes based on certain things happening. And for the GM with these 3 tracks, what happens is if you fill up the track, then you clear it and you mark a permanent. Like now there's 1 permanent, which means that the track is now easier to fill up. So it's a spiral toward an end. And the first track is the GM has the threat track, which is a single track that keeps track of how much have your characters ticked off the Triarchy. How much of a threat did they consider you? And as that gets filled up, then they start to take specific action. They become, like some mid-level person will start to kind of take notice of like, oh, there's these reports of this kind of same starship showing up in different places when these things happen. And eventually it kind of rolls into, well, now they're sending assassins.
Yeah.
If there's enough permanent threat marked.
Oh, yeah.
So that builds up. With your contacts that you build, because in a war, and this is essentially a war, you don't always know who you can trust, and they don't necessarily know they can trust you. You build trust with contacts, and the more you build up the trust track with a given contact, the more they are willing to do for you.
Oh, that's neat.
So at lower levels of permanent trust, they'll help arrange things. They'll get you good prices for things or help you barter for something. At higher levels of trust, they will like risk themselves. Yeah. Outside of like, as long as it's not going to get my family killed, I'm willing to really take a chance and do something that puts me in danger. If they trust you enough, because they know that you've got their back, and if things really hit the fan, that you'll be there to help them and get them out of the trouble that they get in. And then with communities, the track is hope. And you build up hope by helping the communities, by making sure that they have the supplies that they need, by helping them deal with Triarchy incursions. And as you build that, once there comes a point where if you build enough permanent hope with the community, they will actively join the resistance. Oh, that's interesting. And the whole community. So you can have your moments of like getting this traitor or that traitor to turn, or to get like an NPC here and there to kind of join up, but getting, like turning, like here's a community of 350 people who are now all going to put their effort toward the resistance. It becomes like a significant goal for, hitting a few of those over the course of a campaign might be like, what it takes to score some major victories, because you just have enough people. And sometimes that's what sometimes that's all the resistance needs. Like they've got targets, they've got ideas of things that they can do. They've got resources ready to go. The one resource they are lacking is people power. Yep. Because every one of those people is risking their lives or their livelihoods. So that's that whole side of things. And none of it is intrinsically built into any of the game mechanics for players. So if a group doesn't want to really, track all that stuff, and the GM would rather kind of just, fudge it on as they go, and they just decide for themselves, okay, at this point, you've done enough for these people that they're on board with you. But for people who like to have a little crunchy, like, oh, I'm going to tick mark stuff, and I'm going to when we get to a certain number, that's when everything really rocks.
Look, I love a good checkbox. I don't know who to.
Yep. I love like every game that has implemented clocks in some way. It's been an interesting viewpoint on that like ticking progress towards the end goal, and then it's always satisfying and terrifying depending on the clock,
right? Depending on which track and what boxes you're checking, right? Yeah. Look, I love to check them even when they're bad. I like that. Just
what can cause more trouble for me? That sounds
that's
like
my favorite play style. Oh no, how did we end up here?
Well, every single one of your actions for the last 7 games.
Could it be me? I would never.
Innocent little Amelia. Yep.
Yeah, no. I want to know what you think makes this game unique. And I think particularly, and we are in a time where we're seeing a lot of games that are very much about this, wild, fantastical, not even remotely real concept of fighting authoritarian regimes. Like I've definitely seen a few recently. It's certainly a thing that, kind of comes about in gaming a lot, because I think it is, I think there's a desire to feel a little more empowered than a lot of us feel right now. But I'm curious, why that's a space that you want to play in, what you think this game kind of offers for that concept, all that kind of stuff.
I think the thing that I like about this game in particular that I tried to instill in it is, from a role-playing game perspective, with a lot of role-playing games, not with all, but with many, there's a certain kind of power fantasy,
For sure.
right?
Mhm.
You're accomplishing things with your character that you couldn't necessarily do. And sometimes and oftentimes with a lot of games, it's a head trip. Like, it just feels good to do these things.
Mhm.
But in a game where the enemy, where the goals are so in line with some things that can feel very real, having that power fantasy of taking on the problem of defeating some aspect of it, of making things better for your character or better for some other imagined characters in there, it hits closer to home. It's a little more real to a person, to a player. I think that they feel like, not that I'm going to go out and do the things that I do with my character in Cosmic Corsairs in the real world, but it makes you realize that there's not, we are not without hope. We are not without agency that we can claim, things that we can do, ways that we can make things better. And that can be really empowering.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm really intrigued about, like, the sort of community part of it. And you mentioned, also just like being able to celebrate like those smaller victories sometimes too. So I think that, like, a lot of us feel that way right now in particular, is that, like, even, small victories, you're like, but there's still so much, like, there's still so much that isn't happening here. Or like, maybe we won this victory in this state, but not somewhere else. And, so like, I'm very intrigued by like that part of the power fantasy too, because I think it still kind of comes from the same place, but like, is it just a different kind of fantasy?
Maybe to an extent, you can always draw the analogy, in any type of fiction, you've got simile, metaphor, personification of evil or of terrible things that are put into the story, where it's like, oh, well, so-and-so is fighting this thing, but that thing is really, pick your poison. It's really like exploitation of workers by capitalism. That's what you're really fighting.
My favorite thinly veiled metaphor.
Thinly veiled metaphors. But the big thing about it is that we as human beings, we recognize yes, what I'm doing in this game is fantastical, but it reinforces the idea that there are victories to be had. There are things that you can do. And all you have to do is find those things, and you find ways to those victories. And that you see that in a lot in games that don't even deal with the same subject matter as this game. You see that in games where you've got, there are games that are very queer coded and very much exploring the idea of being queer, being gay, being bi, being trans, and being able to take that experience as a person who is gay, bi, trans, what have you, and see, like, okay, this is how, like, I'm going to experiment. This is how this plays out here. Like, this is like, I can learn something from this. But then even like myself, I'm not, and I'm a straight guy, and I'm like, I could play one of those games and help me to understand what other people are going through a little bit by just walking in their shoes for a minute.
Role-playing games are incredible tools for building empathy, because you really legitimately are asking people to like inhabit someone else's life. And I think that it's just other forms of media just don't do it that same way.
No, because you're rarely personifying the character from your own experience and your own making your own choices. Like video games, you can make a certain number of choices, but you're within the structure of the video game. The video game can only go so far. This is a discussion I had with somebody yesterday on a podcast, which was video games give you the limits of what you can do, and RPGs give you the limits of what you cannot do. So you can do absolutely anything in this space as long as it fits within these handful of parameters that you're setting up for the game. And somebody could play Cosmic Corsairs or a game like it, And maybe they are someone who is not directly affected by political things that are going on in the world. Maybe they're privileged to the point that it's just not something that they see in their day-to-day life. But playing the game, they might find themselves suddenly thinking, oh, like I remember somebody was talking about this thing on the news or on some, social media station or some podcast that I came across, TikTok, what have you. And we just did this thing in this game where it was like that there's a connection. I understand, like at some point, like there's just a moment where they go, oh yeah. That's
what
the
that
issue.
feels like. Yeah.
That's the problem. That's the thing that is an injustice.
Yeah.
And hopefully in some way, shape or form, at some point, there will be some players who draw that sort of a conclusion from playing Cosmic Corsairs. And then there will be some people who play it and they just enjoy running around, blowing up Triarchy starships.
We see that with Star Wars fans all the time. Right? There are some people that are like, wow, this is a really great metaphor for what's going on right now and how to fight authoritarianism. And some people are like, I love when stuff blows up and they have laser swords.
And laser swords go.
Yeah.
The thing, the very telling part of the Star Wars thing in the last few years has been how such a large percentage of Star Wars fans say that the Andor series is the best Star Wars has ever been. And it's not blowing up the Death Star.
No.
Right.
It's not fighting Darth Vader. It's doing all the other countless thankless jobs that have to happen in order to make some improvements. And the strongest part of that series is the people who sacrifice so much. They don't give their life in a literal, like they're going to die sort of way, but they give their lives, they give up their livelihood, they give up any chance of being able to have a normal life where they could just not be bothered and just live their lives. And there's something to be said. I mean, there's something to be said for Andor getting the recognition that it has gotten.
Yeah.
In an IP that has so many other movies and series of so many different varieties.
Right.
There's all the big space opera stuff, but then Solo is a pirate game or a pirate story, and Rogue One is a war story, and I'm not comparing what I'm doing to Andor season 1 and 2, but maybe somebody will take the framework from this game and craft something that's really truly meaningful and kind of hits on some of those themes.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So this is the part when we talk about the history of the game. Brand new game we have here. And we have you here because there's a crowdfunding campaign coming up for this. So I was very curious how long this game has been in development before this crowdfunding campaign kicked off.
That is a, I don't want to say difficult answer, but it's an answer that comes with a couple of check boxes. Let's say this. The system that this game uses, I call the roll track system, and it has been used in 3 games earlier that I've designed. It was developed for Good Strong Hands, which came out in 2020, or kickstarted in 2020, came out in 2021. So the system at its core, the core of the system, is several years old. And it's gone through iterations for some other games where I've tinkered with like different ways to do it and use the system, kind of stylize it into different genres. And then I spent about a year figuring out what this game line was going to be. Like, just as I was kind of doing other things and other things were getting published and designed, I was just slowly tinkering with like, okay, here's the different games, and here's the different species, and here's the different cool abilities that people are going to have, and here's the thematic things that are going to be tied to each of the games, and here's the overarching backdrop that we're developing for the solar system. And so that was a year worth of just kind of tinkering in the background, and then developing and writing the game itself was a year long process. So it was a lot more than a year because of all those other steps that took us to get here. But the big push for actually writing the game was to get the combat system to function. I was confident that the skill-based system, like just when you're just rolling dice for the purposes of determining success and failure on tasks, that was working fine. I wasn't worried about that not functioning. But it was getting the combat system to be a little more robust so that it could draw in the fans of the fans of RPGs who like a little more grit and fun. And I don't want to say grit. That's not right the way. It's not a gritty game necessarily, but yeah, a little more crunch, a little more granularity to the game, where and to make sure that works. So a lot of the play testing was getting that to function and making the system itself work, and then making sure that the channelings and things were fun and interesting, and like nothing was horribly broken. And hopefully there's nothing that's horribly broken, but who knows? We'll see. Sometimes there is.
That's what errata are for, right?
I know, right?
If it's good enough for wizards, it's good enough for the rest of us.
So it went through quite a bit of development in kind of a staged process.
Okay.
That's really cool. And now the crowdfunding campaign, can you tell us a bit about that? Any cool things we can expect there?
Oh boy, yeah, the crowdfunding campaign. It'll be on Kickstarter as of October 7th.
Okay.
And it'll run for about a month. There's a number of backer tiers that'll get you varying levels of different things. So if you just the PDF, you can just get the PDF. You can get a hardcover book with the PDF comes with that for free. There's going to be a couple of small supplements that are going to be part of it that you can get to if you want to kind of build out from there. There's one of them is a series of 2-page adventures. And then another one is a little something called Fringe Folio, which, and this will be Fringe Folio Volume 1. Hopefully there will be more, which is almost kind of like a magazine of like, here's a bunch of game content for GMs and players that doesn't specifically fit thematically with what Cosmic Corsairs is at its core. And so it seems kind of odd to necessarily include it in the core book. And it doesn't really fit the other game ideas that I have, but it could be something that you could use to flesh things out a little bit.
But it's too good to live in a Google Doc on my computer.
Yeah. So like, for example, you're zooming around in starships, and so that's all in Cosmic Corsairs. But then Fringe Folio has a short section on like terrestrial vehicles. So like, hover cars and flying speeders, like little flying speeders and things. And not necessarily something you would need in Cosmic Corsairs, would probably be like, oh, that's just taking up space in the book. It's,
something that's not going to come up in every game, but there's going to be some table that's like, I wonder how we would do this. Yeah.
If we're not in our starship and we want to get from here to there,
do we have to walk? I don't.
Yeah. So there's a handful of stuff like that, and so that's like basically what those boil down to is ideas for the game line that are different science fiction-y things that, like I said, don't fit in this specific bubble, or potentially would be equally useful in any of the bubbles. So let's not reprint them in every book.
Yes, yeah.
Let's put them all in a little book so that you buy that one time for those people who want it, and for those people who don't necessarily want it, it's like you're not really missing anything.
Right.
It's you still have the core book that does everything that game is trying to do. Because if we do a game line of, a series of games, there's going to be some repetition,
right?
The game system is going to get repeated and so forth, and some of the GM stuff and things.
Yeah. Do we need to put the vehicle rules in 3 of the 5 books? No, probably not. Like, just because vehicles might be part of this story, even though that game book isn't really about road warrioring all over the planet, a la Mad Max. But maybe you want to be able to road warrior all over the place at some point. Yeah. So there's that. And then I'm also doing dice and a coin to that has a Triarchy side and a resistance side that can be used as a marker for you pass around the table, keeping track of whose initiative it currently is. Okay. And just kind of a cool little artifact of the game. Yeah.
And then if you go to DriveThruRPG right now, you can get the quick start rules.
Cool.
Those will be linked on the Kickstarter as well. So people will be able to go and like check out the basics of the game, which has most of the rules in it. Has some pre-generated characters, but you're missing a lot of the broader setting information and like the character creation rules.
I really love that though as a way to like kind of get people, because sometimes you do want to like look at mechanics and you're like, is this, my play style? Is it going to fit my group? Is it going to, just be able to like, look at it before you,
and
go
there's
all
some
in.
players that, some potential backers, that's like that'll sell them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a sucker for a good quick start.
And some backers are going to be like, I love the concept. I don't care what the rules are. I'll make them work, and I'm just going to back this now. And then some people are going to be like, not my cup of tea, and that's fine. But yeah, it's an opportunity to get a little look at it for those people who want to.
Definitely.
And so the Kickstarter page itself is fairly robust. It gets into the channelings and with including examples of a few from the game. So even if you don't go to the quick start, you can learn a little bit about the channelings. You can learn about the species and some of their capabilities. And then just the whole overview of everything else that the game is kind of about. And then all the breakdown stuff, like, here's the basics. Here's the basics of the rules. Here's the basics of how starships are. It's probably the longest Kickstarter page that I've done, but I wanted to be like, I want to make sure that like the toughest part was figuring out how to order stuff.
Yeah.
Because some people will get like 2 scrolls down and they'll be like, I'm in.
Right.
Like they don't necessarily need to see everything else. They're sold already because they got the basic concept and, a couple other things that is the thing that they like, that they look for. But then for some people, like they might want to like really dig deep into it before they decide whether or not they're going to swipe their card, as it were.
Yeah, and trying to like cater to both those groups of people is, it's a difficult balance because you don't want to like lose people and have people be like, this is so long. Like I really only want 2 sentences of information, but I can't find it. Right.
So hopefully hopefully the important sentences are up for those people are right up top, and they don't, and they'll be like, scroll. I don't need to see all the rest of this.
This is why big bold headings are important and paragraph mark, Yeah. Before we dive into our actual character creation, this is kind of our last question. It's just, are there any like terms or concepts you think people need to know to follow along? Sometimes the answer is we'll learn as we go, but
well, we will learn as we go, but I guess part of some of the important things to keep in mind is we talked about the tracks. The characters have 3 tracks. Those are important. And they are integral to how the game mechanics work. You won't do that much with them during character creation, but it's useful to know what they mean. And we'll get into those in specific when we kind of dig in, I guess, probably as we go down the character sheet. It'd be easier to explain everything then. It's worthwhile knowing that a channeling is your special power. The most powerful of those channelings are called novas. And they are significantly more powerful than a channeling, and that you earn the chance to use them. Like channelings are just generally available as long as you can use them all day long. Some of them might require you to spend a point of something, but otherwise they're available a lot. Novas are like, you're not going to use them as often, but they're a big deal when you do get a chance to use them. However, when we create first level characters, you won't start with one because you grow into a nova. But if we do talk about like where you might be taking your character after starting level, it's useful to kind of keep that in mind. So you might we might plan for a nova.
I think in our advancement discussion in the second part, the last part of the series, I think that would be a wonderful place to kind of explore that a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, are we all set to make some people?
I think so.
Excellent.
I think
so. Well, yeah, let's make some people. Call to action.
Yeah, like that.
No, it's been about 5-6 years, I think, since we've had Craig on last. Quite a while ago. It just shows that we've been doing the show for a long time, and Craig was on pretty early in the process, which was fantastic. He was one of the first guests for a Spotlight episodes. I think he was like series 6 of the Spotlights, I believe. Coming in with Capers a while ago. It was fantastic having him on back then. I had some fantastic discussion, and I'm glad that Amelia was able to join us and get to meet him and have a fantastic time creating characters together for this game, Cosmic Corsairs. We're going to be getting to the character creation portion in the next couple of episodes, so I'm really excited for y'all to hear that. But before we let you go for the day and before we let you get to that next week, we do have some calls to action. First up, the Kickstarter for Cosmic Corsairs starts tomorrow. This system is pretty fantastic, and we really enjoyed that character creation part of it, which, like I said, we will see in the next coming weeks. Also, it is likely to be a pretty cathartic game based on some of the themes we've been talking about in this episode. We'll have a link in the show notes that will take you right there to the Kickstarter. Next up, check us out at GameHole Con in Madison, Wisconsin, Friday night on October 17th at 8 p.m. Central U.S. time. That is somehow just next week, and we will be creating random characters using our custom C3 random character random tables from many random TTRPGs that we own. Random is the word of the day for that. Between our event, however, and any other things that we are attending, we are pretty wide open to take things a little easy. We want to maybe play some impromptu games, maybe meet and hang out with some folks that are attending, and we would love to say hi and maybe give away some swag if we have it on hand. In other news, our Undying Bonds live stream is going to be delayed a little bit due to a couple of reasons. First, next week is our convention, so we are needing to prepare for that. But also, Amelia's family is relying on her for a bit while they recover from sickness and injuries. So we are looking at maybe the Wednesday after the convention, which points us to the 22nd of October. We'll see if that sticks. If things settle down by then, maybe we can do a couple streams in November to make up for things. So stay tuned for more information as we know more. Aside from that, we would love it if you checked out the C3 Patreon at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. We're only $1 away still from our $160 a month goal, which will help us afford to pay our new webmaster to do monthly updates to our homepage at charactercreationcast.com. I am proud to announce that Fiona from the One Shot Network show, What Am I Rolling?, is joining us in the backgrounds for that role. And the first page is up and running for Cosmic Century Nights, as well as James D'Amato's page. And maybe we'll see Cosmic Corsairs soon as well. I think I saw a draft out there, so we'll see when that gets published. Outside of the website upgrades, if we do finally hit that $160 a month goal, as a thank you to our patrons for getting us to this milestone, we will create a unique enamel pin for all of our campaign level backers. It looks like we would be able to get a whole bunch of them to give to any future campaign level backers as well, and we are just $1 away from that goal, so it is very close. If we can get to $200 a month, not only will that unlock yearly subscriptions for our supporters at a discount, it also means that we can afford to pay the new web admin a bit more every month to update the backlog of games on our site as well. We can feasibly get there by the end of this year with just 4 more campaign level backers is all we need. Joining at the campaign level means that you get new stickers for every month that you are a patron, including one of every sticker that we still have on hand. As of right now, that total is over 25 stickers. We've got a few more to design still, but life just keeps on lifing, so we'll get there soon, I promise. You'll also get a set of 3d6 C3 branded dice that are really great quality from ChessX. You'll also get a personalized thank you card from the both of us, handcrafted by Amelia herself, as well as many other perks. That's all for $10 a month, and it will go a long way towards helping provide a one-stop shop for any of the games that we cover on the show. We also have tiers at the $5 level, which does get you the dice, the thank you card, and our bonus episodes, as well as the $1 level that gets you various perks as well, like our occasional chit-chat episodes and bonus outtakes. So head on over to patreon.com/charactercreationcast to get all the info. In addition to all of that, we do like to thank our current patrons every episode. Your support truly helps out a great deal, so let's go ahead and do that right now. Thank you to Lieutenant DJG, aka Tigranosaurus, and Eric Bonds. We're so glad to have you with us. Daryl Holiday II, Shadim Cabal, and the Shyest Barbarian, thank you all so much. Thank you to Benjamin Sweeney, Rob Fletcher, and Kevin Brown. Your support brings us so much joy. Tentacle Doc, John Adamus, and A3 Sketchpad, you shouldn't have, but we're so glad you did. Carlos Salazar, Eric S., and Ian Potmeyer, thank you for your continued support. Liam G., Brian Colm, and Garden GM, we are so grateful to all of you. Thank you. Tanglefoot, Blue Kryptonite, and Danny, thanks for supporting their dreams. Nicole Trainer, Liam Murray, and Kenning, we appreciate your support as well. Thank you. Ryan Kurtz, Marky Fair, and Drew Owen, thanks to all of you. Oz, Sean Metcalf, and Robert, thank you all so much. Kev Bates, Deadly Edley, and Allison Cole, thank you so much as well. And finally, Blue Scholar, many thanks to you. And thank you to all of our future patrons. If you want to join this phenomenal group of individuals, please head on over to patreon.com/charactercreationcast and help us out. And with more assistance, we'll be able to make those website upgrades to make exploring your favorite games that much easier. And if you want to join in the discussion with our hosts, some of our guests, and a bunch of fans, you can head on over to our Discord at discord.charactercreationcast.com. Finally, if you want to help us out in another way that doesn't require any money, you can leave a rating and review for our show on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or Podcast Addict. We will read every new 5-star review as we get them, and as we both have a chance to record together. That's all we have for today's episode. Join us here next time when we begin creating our cool Cosmic Corsairs characters. Until then, take care, everyone. Stay safe, drink some water, and keep making those amazing people. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for part 1 of this character creation series. We'll be back in part 2, picking up right where we left off.
Character Creation Cast is a production of the One Shot Podcast Network and can be found online at www.charactercreationcast.com. Head to the website to get more information on our hosts, this show, and even our press kit. Character Creation Cast can also be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at CreationCast, or on our Discord server at discord.charactercreationcast.com. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Bolter, and I can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Lord Neptune or online at lordneptune.com. Our other host, Amelia Antrim, can be found on Twitter and Blue Sky at Ginger Reckoning. Music for this episode is used with a Creative Commons license or with permission from the podcast they originated from. Further information can be found within the show notes. Our main theme music is Hero Remix by Steve Combs and is used with a Creative Commons license. This podcast is owned by us under Creative Commons. This episode was edited by Ryan Bolter. Further information for the game systems used and today's guests can also be found in the show notes. If you'd like to support our show, find us on Patreon. Get access to bonus episodes, exclusive merch, and much more at patreon.com/charactercreationcast. Thanks for joining us. And remember, we find that the best part of any role-playing game is character creation. So go out there and create some amazing people. We'll see you next time.